you all seem a little intimidated. Everybody's quiet after we got into the spirit of collaboration. So with that said, I'm going to talk more, since we've kind of started, I'm technically difficult when it comes to microphones, but since we've kind of started this idea about collaboration, I'm really going to talk about how one incorporates collaboration into their creative practice. And when I say creative practice, it's because I think as an artist, you have to look outside of just making art in your studio, because if you're going to participate in the creative industries, you're going to do more than just be in your studio. You may be teaching, you may be showing galleries, you may be doing residencies. You're going to be doing a lot of things in your life that kind of fall under this umbrella of the creative industries. And so what I really want to talk about is how collaboration creeps into your art process and your creative process, even in ways that you may not consider. Go for it. And in the beginning, I am technically a sculptor. I am a bronze trained sculptor, first and foremost. I kind of fell into this textile things because I'm a real believer that when you start with a material, that material's history goes with that artwork even before you start to do anything yourself. You start with bronze, you're automatically talking about thousands of years of history of bronze making that's connected to every culture on the planet. Outside of possibly basket weaving and ceramics, it is one of the few art forms that every culture from Africa to Asia to South America, it's everywhere, people have dealt with bronze or some type of metal making. And the reality is, bronze casting is a complete collaborative process. There is no way that when we get to this end of this process and the 685-pound sculpture that sits there, that I would have been able to accomplish this without, this is just a fraction of the people who were there as we continue to process. So this is my collaborating bronze casting crew. This is the process, in case some of you have never seen how bronze casting occurs. It immediately, you see it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 people just to get the 300-pound bucket of metal out of the kiln itself. And then we go on from there. People are cleaning and all these other things to clean the metal just to get to the point that we could have this very little sculpture, which actually is 685 pounds because it's solid bronze. It's not pieces of bronze. It's kind of welded together. It's not hollow. It's actually solid bronze, which is in and of itself a process that's difficult to do because you have issues where the bronze starts to shrink as it cools when you pour it inside the casting. That's just a close-up. This whole project really dealt with how one commemorates history and how a lot of times when we start with history, if you look at bronze itself just has this wonderful metaphors because you go through so much to get it to look really pretty and really clean when you set it out in public. And the reality is this is what it looks like when it comes out. It's not pretty, it's covered in all kinds of scum. And I accept it for what it is. There's no reason to clean up history. It is what it is. It has all types of fractures and breaks and things. And why clean it up? We'll never really kind of get to the truth of things if we're constantly kind of polishing it and trying to make it look acceptable to the public. So then you can really kind of work in your collaboration factor for the sake of others instead of the sake of yourself. This is actually, I participated in the same residency in Brazil that Maria did. And I'm really thankful because her husband's family took me under their wing and I was able to access parts of Brazil in ways that I never would have just as a resident or as just a tourist. I was actually able to live and breathe and be accepted as one of the community and get access to people and everything as if I had been raised there my whole life. So what I did was work with a lot of people, but the project I'm choosing to show is a project that dealt with school children. One of the things to keep in mind is that Brazil at this time has come out of a military junta that was very violent for many, many generations. The group of kids I worked with were probably between 11 and 16. And they were in many ways the first generation born after that. So they don't have memories of this violence. And unlike their predecessors, because I also did an oral history project where people could document their stories and people would be very afraid, well, you know, we can't talk about those things, even though at this point the junta's been gone 16, 17 years. And they're like, well, you know, it could come back any day and you're trying to document us. And I'm like, well, I'm not trying to document anything. This is just your opportunity to tell your story about your lives. Well, you had to reverse with the children. The children were very disgruntled about the state of their lives. We don't have opportunities, they would say. Well, I would be like, oh, you know, be all you can be. Totally American idea. And they were like, no, the son of a fisherman is always a fisherman. Why are you trying to tell us we can be more than this? And I'm like, well, college may not be your option because for many of them, it is not an option. They don't have the money. They don't have a scholarship. This is it. They're going to get out of school. Many of the girls just look forward to going on to have a baby. Many of the dudes just wonder if they're even going to be able to find a job. But I told them, regardless of what your situation is, you still have a voice, and we can find ways to use that voice to talk about your situation. And just to kind of better bring home the idea of the fear that people did have. I had one of my colleagues there, he is an American, a Jamaican American, and he had made a movie that talked about how the president had failed on his promise to ensure that every Brazilian at least had 3 meals a day, because that was his campaign promise, and he failed on that. And so in the movie, there's like it's probably a 10-minute movie, and the kid goes around and he like tries all these different jobs, and he's like, well, you know, I can't do this job because of this. I can't do this job because, you know, they won't let me. I can't do this, I can't do that. And at the end, he's like, well, you know, where are these opportunities that promise I could eat 3 times a day? So their version of PBS while we were there had heard he was in town and he's married to a local woman. They were like, oh, you know, we know that you're married to one of our community members, and we'd really like to see this video. You know, it's great because it's kind of connected to Brazil. So he shows them the video, and they're like, we can't show that on TV. And he's like, well, why not? They're like, you know how much trouble we'll get in? You know, you may bring the wrong people here to see us with this video. And keep in mind, that was just in 2005 when this occurred. So the video didn't get showed. So these kids, we lived in a place where, you know, there's very limited supplies. You're in an island in the middle of the ocean. Whatever you bring to the island, you better be able to put it on a backpack, hike a mile to hop on the bus, ride 40 minutes on the bus, then jump on basically a ferry and go 30 minutes across the ocean, get dropped off on the street, and then wherever you can walk to from there, it takes about 2 hours. Whatever you bring back to the island to work on, you have to be able to put it in the backpack or find a way to get it there. So Brazil has a really rich textile tradition that's a lot related to African textile traditions that you'll see in the project that's in the gallery. And so that was something we could work on. It was something easy that we could work on. It was something that the children could afford to work on, even though I financed the project, they still wanted to add their input. And so what one group of children came up with is a new Brazilian flag called Consciência Negra. And they wanted to really talk about how Brazil's rich cultural diversity is oftentimes not displayed. The reality is Brazil is a nation of color, but you would never know that reading their literature. It would look almost like it was a European nation. And they felt very offended by this, because they were like, they act as if we do not exist here and we are the majority. At this particular time, this island is also kind of a resort area, and the children were being told, because the Christmas time is their summer, so school was about to let out, and they were told, you know, the townspeople from Salvador, the main city, were coming to land. They were like, well, you have to get off the beach now because we're here. And they're like, well, you know, we live here 10 months out of the year. You live here 2 months. How do you feel like you have rights to the beach more than we do? And it really came down to these issues of race. When you're dark, black girl, get off the beach. These are the kind of things that your children are assaulted with. These are the kind of things I was assaulted with. And I'm like, huh? And they're like, oh, American. So then everything changes because you're an American. But it still doesn't belie the fact that they live here 10 months out of the year. They have more rights to the beach than anybody. They're here every day. And so they wanted to create a new flag that represented the true Brazil. And these are colors that they chose, which actually represent the Pan-African colors. So you have yellow for freedom, red for blood, black and white handprints and all of that, and green for the land of Africa. These were a set of girls that wanted to create this little, they called it a blanket, I called it like a table placemat, that really talks about being proud to be black, which is not something you are to do in Brazil, or they would like you not to do. Keep in mind, this is the land where you can read the newspaper and it says only people with good skin should apply, and that's code for light skin. So they really want to talk about having dignity and black power and no discrimination in these things. So these are the girls, and this just gives you a better close-up of what they've done. And some of these fabrics are really cultural. this is what they had in the store. This is what the kids were able to bring home. These are not particular, fabrics that we would find in the U.S., but it is fabrics that we were able to find there. So people also, the students were requested to write essays about these things, so we picked the best essays. And we were actually in probably one of the top gallery spaces in Brazil, in Salvador Bahia. And we had this they came up with the idea of this kind of bulletin board where you can actually see where it says K, like what, and then this goes down there and talks about what is the Day of National Black Consciousness means to you, and what are the issues in society that you want to talk about. And all of their essays talk about things that their grandparents and their parents refused to talk about. They talk about them all. And interesting enough, Brazil, I would pretty much, I don't know, do you feel this way? But it is kind of a caste-based system where you have people here, you have people there, and they may or may not mix. And this is a situation where kids from the country were mixing with basically Salvador's elite. You had doctors, the university professors, all of that there at this particular art gallery. And he's actually, this man makes the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life, and I don't like coffee that much, but it's fabulous. He was actually the first person to write on it. He was like the gallery butler, is the best way to say it, because you would come in and he'd go get you drinks and things like that, and you'd come in off the street, and for the rest of our time there, we could walk by and he'd call us in to come and get drinks and things. But he was very fearful at first. He's like, oh, you really mean that I can write on this? We're like, yeah, go ahead, write on it. And he wrote these really lovely prose that later had to be translated for us, but they were really lovely about how he really had envisioned that he would be able to have a different life than the life he has now, but he's at least happy to have this life because he at least has a job. And so these just show you some of the writings, because the whole board at the end of the night was completely filled up, and we just had to start handing out sheets of paper for people